He counted 19 blows and refused to fall, then woke to guards kneeling and calling him the Queen's chosen. Lena saw it happen from the pit's edge, the word chosen burning like a second sun over a life that had almost ended for a child. The orbital city of Aramor circled its blue world like a crown made of glass. Lena Whitaker, an elf with eyes the color of frost at sunrise, walked the mid-tier promenades with her dragon's clothes. Flint patted at her heel, scales matte black and warm, a compact predator the size of a lean hound. Sable rode her shoulder, small as a house cat, wings folded tight, pupils narrow and bright. They were old friends and good liars. When they moved, onlookers saw only exotic pets with glittering collars, not carbon lattice bones and plasma lungs. Aramor had rules. People ignored them when it made for better spectacle. That's why the market day had swollen into an unauthorized arena. Someone had dragged the safety bollards back and ringed the plaza with hollow barriers. Someone else, several someones, by the look of the flagpoles, had invited the sable guard. At the center stood a boy no older than 7. Lost and brave at once, clutching a tin windspinner shaped like a star. Around him, a squad of gray-cloaked enforcers advanced with shock batons held low. They wore the mark of the tax magistrate, not the queen. That meant purchase, not justice. That meant the child owed or belonged. Lena angled left, weighing options. She'd seen this kind of hunger before, bureaucrats hiding cruelty behind ink. She could call the queen's line, cite jurisdiction, let legality grind the thugs down by morning. Or she could move now and trust that mercy would make its own law. Flint's breath warmed her shin in quiet agreement. Sable's tail tapped her collarbone. Now, then he stepped out of the crowd. A human. Tall, wide-shouldered, wearing a jacket with the kind of frayed edges that come from choosing repairs over replacements. His jaw was rough with the start of a beard. His eyes were tired and kind. He didn't ask anyone's permission. He just walked into the ring and planted himself between the enforcers and the boy. Name? The lead enforcer demanded. Evan Cole, he said. No title. No rank. His voice had the soft rasp of someone who'd been talking people down from ledges his whole life. Remove yourself, the gray cloak said. State business with the debtor. Evan glanced back at the child. My business is that he's small and you are many. Move, the gray repeated, tone flattening. No, Evan said. The baton fell. It landed across Evan's ribs with a sickening, electric bite. He didn't raise a hand to block. He didn't swing. He only took a small breath-measuring pain like a craftsman measures wood, and stepped 1 inch closer to the boy. Lena started forward. Flint surged and Sable hissed, but she held up her hand. An old habit from training yards and worse. Interfere too soon, and you become the spectacle. Interfere at the right heartbeat, and you become the ending. The second blow came low across Evan's thigh. He grunted. The third snapped against his shoulder. He rocked but did not fall. 4, 5, 6, he took them the way a beam takes wind, bending and returning. The plaza's noise drained away until there was only counting. Only the rain of sanctioned violence against one stubborn life. By the 9th strike, Evan's breath sounded like torn paper. By the 12th, blood ran down his side in narrow rivers under the jacket. The boy pressed his star into Evan's palm, face wet and furious. Please, he whispered. Please stop. Evan smiled, a crooked thing that somehow made room for gentleness. Hey, little man. You hold that for me. The 13th blow snapped the windspinner in two. The 14th caught Evan's back, driving him to one knee. Flint bared his teeth. Sable's throat glowed with a thin, dangerous light. Lena's own pulse went sharp and steady, combat true. She measured distances, 5 meters to the lead enforcer, 6 to the barrier control, 3 to the boy. The 15th hit. Evan's head bowed. The 16th, 17th, 18th came as a flurry, meant to end a story. The 19th landed like a hammer on a bell. Evan fell forward, caught himself with one hand, and then, because stubbornness is a kind of magic, he stood again. Not tall, not triumphant, just upright. The plaza inhaled as one organism and forgot how to exhale. A long shadow crossed the ring. Sable guards in black glass armor stepped through the hollow barriers without distortion, which meant the field admitted them by design. Their commander carried the Queen's seal in one palm like a fallen star. She took in the scene, the boy, the gray cloaks, the human with blood in his mouth, and her face did not change. She spoke into her throat mic. "Stand down," she said. The gray cloaks froze, half from training, half from fear. The commander walked to Evan and the child, boots whispering on tile. She knelt, not to the man, but to the boy. "Who is your guardian?" She asked. The child looked at Evan, wide-eyed. "Him." Evan tried to speak, failed, swallowed iron, and tried again. "Just helping." "Correct," the commander said. She rose, turned, and spoke to the plaza. "Hear and remember, Aramor is under the Queen's protection. Harassment of minors under color of law is treason." She turned back to Evan and did something Lena hadn't seen since she was a child at court. The commander bowed. Not deep, she wore armor and duty, but honest. The rest of the Sable Guard followed, moving as one. "By the Queen's decree," the commander said, voice carrying like a clean blade, "the one who takes 19 blows for a child is kin to the crown. Rise, Prince Consort." The word rolled over the plaza in waves. Evan blinked as if he'd been handed a son. "I'm what?" Lena let out a breath she hadn't known she was holding. Sable nuzzled her jaw, pleased. Flint's tail drew a thoughtful line on the stone. The gray cloaks tried for one last scrap of power. "This is irregular." The commander silenced him with a look. "Remove yourselves. Leave your weapons." They obeyed. Power understands power. Evan wavered. The counts he had carried, 19, 19, 19, were catching up to his nerves. Lena stepped in before he could fold. She offered her arm. He stared, unfocused, then accepted, weight heavy, trust immediate, and a little bewildered. "Easy," she said, voice low enough for only him and dragons to hear. "Breathe where it doesn't hurt. If that place doesn't exist, pretend it does." He half laughed, half coughed. "You a doctor?" "Engineer," she answered. "But I fix things." Flint braced his shoulder against Evan's leg, steady as a post. Sable climbed to the human's other shoulder and chirped in a tone Lena used when students panicked over math. The boy stood close, still clutching the broken star. The commander gestured to a med sled that arrived on silent runners. "The palace clinics are ready," she said. She looked at Lena then, curiosity like a thin line of light. "You are Whitaker of the North Rings." Lena inclined her head, just enough. "Lena will do." "You will accompany him," the commander said, not quite a question. "Her Majesty would have words. With me?" Evan asked, dazed. "With both of you," the commander replied. "Prince Consort and the elf who kept dragons from burning my city in his defense." "I was counting," Lena said. "I noticed," the commander said. And for a heartbeat amusement warmed her controlled face. "Bring the child." The Queen does not prefer stories retold. They moved as a knot through the parting crowd guard, human, elf, boy, and dragons toward a lift that smelled faintly of sea salt air and lemon polish. Lena filed details the way she always did when change cracked the ground. The Queen had invoked an old vow to protect the smallest. The guard had bowed without shame. The city had watched and learned a new boundary. Inside the lift, Evan sagged against the rail. "Prince Consort," he repeated softly, tasting the words as if they were a fever dream. "That can't be real." Lena checked the med readouts. Pain spiraled like storm bands across his ribs and thigh. Shocks had bruised the long muscles that kept a person upright. "Real enough," she said. "And also a trap." He turned his head. "Trap?" Every crown is a door, Lena said. Some open to rooms, some to pits. You took 19 blows for a child. The court will either make you a legend or a lever. The lift's walls shifted from mirrored steel to a vista of the palace, 1,000 spires like frozen waves. The boy pressed his nose to the glass, all washing the last of his fear into quiet. Evan stared at the city he'd just become part of. Which do you think the queen will make me? Lena felt Sable's claws curl against her collar, a small questioning pressure. Flint huffed, as if the future had a scent he didn't like. She'd decide who you are to her, Lena said. You should decide who you are to yourself. Start with a person who keeps standing. He nodded, slow and careful, as if every vertebra were a decision. That I can manage. The lift slowed. Somewhere above, ceremonial bells began to ring low, resonant, meant for vows and winter dawns. The doors parted onto a hallway the color of deep water. The sable guard formed a corridor of silence. At the far end, light spilled like a promise under a door carved with 1,000 tiny stars. Her Majesty, the commander said, awaits. Flint and Sable went very still, warrior quiet. The boy took Evan's hand. Evan took Lena's arm again, not because he was weak, but because the future is heavy when it changes names. They stepped toward the light, and Lena felt the old, cold thrill of events getting larger than anyone's plan. The queen would ask questions. Power would make offers. And somewhere between royalty and law, the price of 19 blows would be named. Lena squeezed Evan's fingers once. Remember your breath, she murmured. And if anyone tries to turn your kindness into their weapon, The throne room felt like the inside of a bell vast cold and tuned to a single note. Light fell through a lattice of crystal panels, painting the floor in slow rivers of blue. The sable guard peeled away to the pillars, motionless as carvings. At the far end, on a dais as plain as a prayer, the queen stood waiting. She was smaller than rumor, younger than legend, and older than the city. Her presence arrived before her voice. Lena felt it the way her dragons did. Flint's ears tipped forward, Sable's pupils pinned to thin slits. The child clutched Evan's hand tighter and hid half his face behind Lena's sleeve. Evan Cole, the queen said, each word balanced like glass. You stood between power and a small life, at cost to yourself. In Aramor, that is the measure of nobility. Evan tried to bow and winced. Your Majesty, I didn't mean to make trouble. Good, she said. I have enough subjects who try. Then, with a nod to the commander, she added, clinics. The med team moved in quiet arcs, wrapping bands around Evan's ribs, setting a cooling weave along his thigh. The boy received a gentler version warm tea, a diagnostic patch shaped like a star, a blanket that smelled faintly of cedar. Lena was offered a chair she did not take. Sable climbed onto it anyway, curled like a comma, and watched the room with bright suspicion. The queen studied Lena openly. Whitaker of the North Rings, she said. You were supposed to be in Lecture Hall 7 this morning, teaching propulsion to children who think stars owe them favors. I sent a recording, Lena answered. Today, a child owed no one anything. Something like approval flickered through the queen's stillness. And the dragons? My companions, Lena said. Old promises. Flint exhaled softly, a warm, metal smell. Sable angled an ear, satisfied with the title. The queen's gaze returned to Evan. Prince Consort, she said. He flinched at the word as if it were a bright light. Ma'am, your Majesty, I'm not. Any title you meant for me, it's a mistake. In Aramor, some laws are older than preference, the queen replied. An oath of 19 is one. It binds the crown to your defense, and you to the crown's protection of the small. It does not force marriage. Her mouth curved, almost a smile. Despite court gossips who will starve without that hope. A soft wave of relief moved through Evan's shoulders. "Thank you," he said, and meant it. "However," the Queen continued, and the room cooled by a degree, "the oath does more than change how people address you. It invites enemies who prefer a world where children are currency. Those gray cloaks did not act alone." She glanced to the commander. "Names." The commander stepped forward, visor unlocked, face pale with fatigue and certainty. "We took their devices, Majesty. Their ledgers show a custody auction planned for this evening in Dock 32 under the tax magistrate's seal." The boy's breath hitched. Evan squeezed his hand. "You're safe," he whispered. The Queen's eyes hardened. "Majors of tax will explain themselves. Before arrest, I want proof that closes every door." She looked to Lena. "Engineer, will you find me the switch they pulled?" Lena kept her tone even. "Yes, take what you need," the Queen said. "Except 5 minutes of patience. I will give you that." She stepped down from the dais with a kind of gravity that made space for paradox. Power without weight. She stopped before the child and went to one knee, queen to child, not child to queen. "What is your name?" she asked. He whispered through the blanket. "Toby, Toby," she said. "In this city, you belong first to yourself. If any adult forgets, you may remind them by calling my guard. Do you understand?" Toby nodded, eyes round as planets. The Queen touched the edge of his broken wind spinner and without ceremony handed it to Lena. "Whitaker, fix what can be fixed." Lena turned the tin star over in her fingers. The break was clean. The solder would hold. "Yes, Your Majesty." Evan watched the exchange with something like wonder and something like grief. "I thought kings and queens were stories," he said softly. "They are," the Queen said, rising. "The kind that end badly unless someone interrupts." She looked at him again, and just for a breath, her voice gentled. "You interrupted. That is why your name will be useful." "Useful?" He echoed. "To keep our enemies busy while we work," she said. "Prince Consort looks good on a warrant." Lena's mouth almost betrayed her with a smile. She swallowed it, and saw Evan do the same. The clinic smelled like rain and iron. Windows overlooked the city's spine where freight lines ran like silver nerves. Lena stood at a work table with the wind spinner, a pot of solder, and a slate full of scraped data. Flint lay on the floor, guarding the door with the dignity of a small dragon who took his job personally. Sable perched on a shelf, tail drifting like smoke, eyes half-lidded but alert. Evan, patched and wrapped, sat upright on the medcot because lying down made him think too much. Toby slept under the cedar blanket, fist closed on a star mended to the best of Lena's hands. "What do you need from me?" Evan asked. "A list of everything you saw before the plaza formed," Lena said without looking up. "Faces, words, smells. Did anyone bump you? Brush something on your jacket? Did the gray cloaks look at a specific balcony between strikes?" He frowned, thinking. There was a woman with a neat braid near the fountain. Kept tapping her wristband like she was timing the whole thing. And a man in a rust coat, no emblem, watching the guards instead of the kid. He left the moment the sable guard stepped in. Lena tried the names on the surface of her mind and found none she liked. The Queen's enemies would hire hands for a custody auction. But auctions need bidders. That means nobles or people who borrowed noble arrogance. "Why the auction?" Evan asked, frustration cutting through his fatigue. "Why not just take him?" "Because a ledger is a spell," Lena said. "It turns theft into paperwork. Paperwork convinces cowards they're clean." Flint made a low, irritated noise that meant agreement. Sable chirped. Lena glanced up to see the little dragon staring at a med drone parked in the corner. It was ordinary white shell, blue status light, except the light had a second pulse under it. "Too slow for a machine, Evan," Lena said quietly. "Don't move." He didn't. She set the spinner aside, took up a probe. and crossed to the drone as if she meant to check its charge. Flint rose without sound. Sable's throat gathered a tiny glimmer. Lena knelt, touched the casing, and felt the wrongness immediately, a heat signature braided over the drone's own. She slid the probe under the seam and lifted. A sliver of composite popped free, revealing a hair-thin sigil etched on a black wafer. "Someone tagged the clinic," she said, flat. "Door number 2. Before she could pull the wafer, the clinic lights dimmed. The med doors hissed as if someone had pressed a clean. Authorized palm to the hall console. The Sable commander swept in, followed by 2 guards and a woman in a severe suit whose crest said magistrate, but whose mouth said knife. "Engineer Whitaker," the magistrate said, voice bright and false. "By the Queen's mercy, you have my jurisdictions. Thanks for your quick work. We'll take custody of the child now." Flint's rumble thickened to thunder. Sable's glow sharpened. Toby stirred, blinking, small face confused and brave. Evan rose too fast and swayed. Lena reached without looking and steadied him with a hand to the elbow. "Magistrate," Lena said, keeping her voice soft enough to force everyone else to lean in. "Your men tried that once today. The Queen's oath covers him now." The woman's smile didn't reach her eyes. "Oaths apply to citizens. This one," she said, meaning Toby as if he were a ledger line, "is unregistered." The commander's visor shook her head by a fraction. "The Queen said, the Queen will be informed that engineering staff and an unvetted laborer interfered with lawful process." The magistrate said, "Stand aside." Lena slid the black wafer out with her probe and held it up between 2 fingers. "And she will be informed that your clinic drones carry hidden markers that open doors for thieves." The room stilled. The magistrate's eyes narrowed to slits. "You overstep." "I count," Lena said simply. "Today I counted 19. I can count to treason." The magistrate's hand jerked toward her console. The commander caught her wrist and squeezed until Bones remembered honesty. "No," the commander said. "Not here." Sable hissed a knife of sound. Flint stepped forward, the floor clicking softly under his claws. Evan stood, breathing like someone climbing a hill with stones in his chest. Toby woke fully and reached for the star. The clinic doors hissed again. For a heartbeat, Lena hoped it would be the Queen. Or simple help. It was neither. 3 figures in gray stepped through cloaks clean, batons brighter, badges new. Their eyes were wrong, flat, lit from behind by fervor. They carried the tax crest and something else under their collars. A little pulse of light that matched the wafer's heartbeat. "By order of revenue law," the first intoned. "We reclaim the asset, the witnesses, and the evidence." Flint's head lowered. Sable's glow turned white-hot. The commander lifted her hand, but her gauntlet flickered, dead. The room's power had been braided out from under her. Lena tucked the wafer into her palm and looked at Evan. He met her gaze and nodded once. "Dragons," she said, calm as a metronome. "With me." Flint took point. Sable's song gathered in his shadow. Evan stepped to shield Toby. And Lena moved like a problem, looking for its solution straight, at the new wrong door the magistrate had brought into the Queen's house. The alarms didn't start, they stopped. The clinic's hum went quiet, the lights falling into a blood-colored haze. Lena knew that silence. She'd designed it years ago for emergency containment. It meant the system no longer belonged to her. The gray enforcers advanced, faces blank, batons gleaming. Between their steps and the dying hum, she could almost hear the coded pulse inside the wafer in her hand, a signal calling its masters. Flint growled, a deep, molten sound. Sable's scales flared to silver. "Keep the boy behind me," Lena told Evan quietly. "When I say run, you don't argue." "Not planning to," he murmured. But his hand stayed on Toby's shoulder. The magistrate smirked, mistaking calculation for fear. "It's over, engineer." Stand aside before you join the debtor lists yourself. Lena slid the wafer into the med table's port, overriding her own system. No, she said, and flipped the safety off her console. The ceiling panels flared white. For one heartbeat, the room became pure light, and then the power grid inverted. The floor panels pulsed, magnetic fields snarling. The gray cloaks froze as their weapons snapped from their hands and clanged to the walls. Flint. She called. The dragon lunged, jaws sparking. His claws caught one enforcer's chestplate, peeling it open like wet paper. Sable dove from the air, shrieking a note that made glass bow inward. The magistrate screamed as her badge cracked, spilling its hidden circuitry, a second wafer. Black as sin. Evan! Lena shouted, now. He grabbed Toby and sprinted toward the far door. It stayed locked until he slammed his palm against the sensor. The sensor lit green. Guess your system likes me, he gasped. Queen's consort, Lena said, running beside him. It should. They burst into the hall, Flint barreling after them, smoke curling from his nostrils. Sable clung to the lights above, darting ahead to scout. Behind them, the clinic erupted. No explosion. Just the controlled collapse of power grids eating their own wires. The palace corridors curved like veins, all of them leading toward the core lift. At its base, the Sable commander waited, visor cracked, sword drawn. Whitaker, she said. Her Majesty ordered me to find you. What did you do? Save the Queen a court trial, Lena said. And maybe her city. She held up the broken wafer. They've been using your med drones as beacons. They were going to open the palace vault from the inside. The commander's eyes widened. Then the magistrate. Gone, Lena said grimly. Or halfway there. The lift doors hissed open, revealing the Queen herself. No crown, no escort. Just power shaped like grace. Report, she said. Lena stepped forward, blood spattering her sleeve. Your Majesty, the magistrate's office has been laundering royal access codes through tax authority signatures. The boy was bait to test a stolen network. Evan's act of mercy tripped their failsafe. It made the system choose sides. The Queen's gaze fell on Evan, and it chose you. He swallowed. If I'd known saving a kid would start a war, I might have. Well, no. I'd still have done it. Something in the Queen's face softened. Good. Empires survive only when someone like you ignores the math. Alarms flared again, this time from above. A voice echoed through the corridors. Unauthorized override detected. Vault security compromised. Lena looked up. They're going for the throne archive, she said. That's the key to every citizen's ID string. If they corrupt it, then Aramor belongs to no one, the Queen finished. She turned to Evan, Prince Consort. You're still standing after 19 blows. Can you stand one more? He smiled, raw but steady. Lead the way. The vault was a cathedral of data columns of frozen light, spinning glyphs of history. In the center hovered a single figure, barely human, woven of code and bone. The magistrate had become something else, her body a host for the stolen system. You can't stop this, she said, her voice layered, half machine, half memory. The throne's code belongs to us now. Lena's fingers flew across the panel. You're using a recursive loop tied to the Queen's DNA. You hijacked her lineage algorithm. The magistrate smiled. Then to save the city, she must kill her own name. Lena looked at the Queen. Then at Evan, or we find another name. She reached into her satchel and pulled out the fragment of the tin windspinner, the child's broken star, now soldered with her own code. This still carries the oath. Evan, touch it. He did. The star flared gold. The Queen placed her hand over his. Their pulses synchronized human and monarch, mercy and lineage. The vault's symbol shivered. Override, Lena whispered. The air cracked like thunder. Light roared upward, flooding every corridor with a single command: protection. The magistrate screamed as the vault's power rejected her, the code unraveling her false identity until nothing remained but dust and echo. Then silence. The vault's hum settled. Every ID string, every citizen file blinked intact. Evan stumbled, caught by the queen before he fell. "You'll live," she said softly, "but rest will not come easily." "Didn't come easy before either," he murmured. Smiling faintly, the queen turned to Lena. "You and your dragon saved more than my city today." Lena wiped soot from her cheek. "We just fixed what tried to break." Flint rumbled. Sable chirped, exhausted but proud. The queen looked at them all, the elf, the dragons, the boy, the bloodied human, and for the first time in years, she let herself smile without armor. "Then let it be known," she said, voice carrying through the vault, "that Aramore's throne owes its pulse to those who bleed, not those who bargain." Evan's head dipped. "Does this mean I'm still a prince?" "Consort," Lena corrected gently. "The title fits, though I'd recommend better armor next time." He laughed, weak but alive. Toby slipped his small hand into his. "You didn't let them win." "No," Evan said. "But we didn't do it alone." He looked at Lena. "Thank you." She shrugged, hiding the warmth behind a smirk. "You're welcome, Your Highness." He groaned. "Don't start." "Too late," she said. Outside, the alarm ceased for good. The city lights brightened Aramor alive again, its orbit steady. The queen stood before them, cloak whispering like calm wind. "The child is safe. The city remembers. And you, Evan Cole, you reminded us what power is for." Evan nodded once, eyes on the stars beyond the vault glass. "To protect the small." The queen inclined her head. "Exactly. And somewhere deep in the vault circuits, the word Prince Consort burned into history. If you enjoyed, he took 19 blows to save a child only to wake as the Queen's chosen. Subscribe to FaeloriaNexus for more cinematic HFY sci-fi stories filled with courage, emotion, and fire. Like, share, and comment your favorite moment, because every story grows stronger when you add your voice to it.